Hey, I'm James Mcdougall.
I'm Lexi Grabowski.
I'm Briar Knowles.
My name is Jessica Malka.
I'm Christy Murdoch.
It's Alaska Lee.
I am Natasha Prasad.
I'm Meghan Hemingway.
I'm Leanne Johnson.
My name is Snezhana Baikova.
I'm Kate Schroeder.
My name is Natasha Hurlbert.
My name is Rachel.
My name is Deborah Lee Smith.
I'm Rebecca Amzallag.
And I'm an actress and producer.
I'm an actress based in New York City.
Writer, actress.
I'm an actor.
Actor and filmmaker.
I'm an actress based in Los Angeles.
And I'm an actor, singer-songwriter.
I'm an actress.
I'm a model actress based out of Calgary, Alberta.
I'm an actor and a musician.
I am an actress based in Toronto, and I want to thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching.
And thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much for watching.
Thanks for tuning in to the Chat with Dan show.
I want to start this whole conversation with this first question, which is, what would you like to have told to yourself before becoming an actor?
I guess I'll go first. Remember to really go for it and have fun. Don't let anybody make it not fun for you.
That's good.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, mine's kind of similar, like to enjoy the process more, the journey of it all. Because I know for myself as a younger person, I had this idea that like, oh, it was going to start once I had this, and this. And it's like, no, this is it. The journey is it. So like enjoy it, celebrate the like small wins along the way, and like try to enjoy it more. Don't let anyone take that joy away. Kind of like what you said.
Yeah, totally agree.
Right.
There's something that people kept telling me throughout my entire journey, probably because I wasn't doing it enough, but had I been able to understand this concept and really kind of drop it in, I think I would have benefited, because it took me a long time before I started booking jobs. But this idea of the more I can be myself, the better it's going to be. It's just going to be successfully better. I'm going to have a better time. My shame spirals will be different. Like, and I'm so grateful that like, yeah, I could have taken longer, but now I understand that, and I really move towards that more than anything else.
Cool. Yeah.
Awesome.
I agree with everything you said for sure. And for me, I kind of wish I knew this, because I always was like having fun and just like acting for the sake of acting. But I wish I knew earlier that it was a business. Like like if I could have just shook myself like when I was really young and been like, this is a business, get an agent, man. Like I was just running around freelance, like going around different provinces and just acting for like nothing. And it would have been really smart to kind of figure that part out a little bit earlier. It would have been nice, that it's a business, and and you got to work, like think like that a little bit too in the back of your head.
It's so funny. I was just talking to somebody the other day, who's like, but the lead on many series, and we were laughing because if I didn't have an agent, I would work for free all the time, because I love working. I'm like, oh, what? That's fine. So like thinking about, how much our union and how much our agents do for us. I'm just like, thank you. But also I would work for free I shouldn't say this, but I mean, it's true. I would work for free constantly.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Yeah, obviously.
That's awesome. Now, that being said, what has surprised you the most about the profession of being an actor?
I can take this one off. I thought about the idea that a lot of it's mundane, especially film acting. Like theater acting is different because you're like so active on stage, and you're always like you're always like kind of trying to project to the back of the room and get it's a little bit different. But film acting some days can be so mundane and don't really feel like you can literally leave the whole day and you're like, all I did was kind of like walk in a house and like eat a meal and like open a door and like just the simplest stuff,
Yeah, you just lie down and be dead for like 4 hours.
Yeah, and it's, or just regular everyday life stuff. That's not all scenes are super exciting, and especially when you're working on a feature, you might have days in a row where you're just like doing the just normal scenes where you're just kind of setting up a story or something, and you just go about, and it's just so, I guess you just gotta, I don't know, it's just like living life, and it doesn't. At the end of it, you don't feel like you just delivered some crazy monologue, and you're like got this rush like you do from stage or something like that. You're just like, oh, Like it was a little mundane and just, but you did the work. Like you went through whatever you had to do for that scene.
I think too, yes, totally agree with everything that you just said, James. To me too, it's like we train in, or however you came up, it's like you train for those moments of being on set, of being on stage. What surprised me is, we don't train for like, how do you take care of yourself when you're auditioning counts. Like so much of our job is to audition and to like pour it all into this thing and then have the like mental health and ability to then let it go and move on. And like that to me has been the biggest learning curve. Is like the work, so much of the work is auditioning and like grinding for no money and doing it because you love it. And then sometimes you get to go to set and then sometimes you get to go on stage, but like the job, so much of the job is the sort of thankless like parts of the day that no one sees, and the struggles, and then like managing your relationship to the work. It's really funny. I've been getting somebody new must have moved into my building because I've been getting like noise complaints for my vocal warm-ups. And I was like, you don't understand. I can't not do these. I'm like, I know you think that I'm just, doing these mumbly parts because that's what something called for, but it's not that. We need to have all of this practice. And like so many of the great teachers I've worked with, like Larry Moss or Rael and Bodie, it's like you have to have a daily practice. And like that's the work. What I also find surprising about what I've learned, especially in TV and film, I've not done a lot of theater. And this is helpful. And I remember somebody telling me this, actually, an actor who went into production and writing afterwards, but she just explained, she's like, the actors are so exactly the same size as every single other part of the movie. So every single crew member, every single, person who's like in the financial office trying to put things together, like the coordinators. And that has been so helpful for me because I'm like, it's really not a big deal. It's like also, schedules. Yes, sure. Of course, for us, it's what we look like and what we can do and what we bring in our essence. But if I can let go of it being about me, it's also I can't do much about what my face looks like, and I can't do much about the sound of my voice in my entire life. You know what I mean? Like I can't do much other than offer this. But to let go of thinking that the actors are more important than anybody else, or that there's only a director, a writer, and actors that are important. It's everybody literally is completely essential, and I like that. It's calming. Totally.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think one of the things that really surprised me was the amount of gatekeeping getting into it at all. Like it's there, it's like shooting for the stars when you start out, but it's really never ending. Sometimes it just feels like, oh, I finally got that, and then there's another, oh, you need more experience to get that experience, or you need to know this person to work with that person. And it's there's a lot of just a lot of people who are very precious about what they do and protective, and I think it comes from a place of love for the craft, but it can be very difficult to, I guess, soldier on and keep going and find your way. But yeah, that was very surprising for me.
That's incredible. I love all of those answers, and it's interesting, but with what you mentioned, Rebecca, the fact that because for some people might think that the movie depends strictly on the actors. So that's it. That if the movie wasn't good enough, it's the fault of the actors. Which once you realize there's a whole, as you mentioned, there's a whole lot of things behind that we, of course, the audience don't know when we're watching, the whole project.
It's funny now when I see a movie that's like full of really people that I find really talented or who I've seen a lot of their movies be really strong. And if the movie's not gelling for some reason, I'm like, who the fuck did this? And I'm like looking who edited it. And I'm like, but this editor has made this movie. It couldn't have been them. I'm like, why do I need to blame somebody?
Right.
It could be
who's
the
the bad seed?
Yeah.
Who's
It's the
bad
gaffer.
seed?
It's the freaking
No one
gaffer.
ever blames the gaffer. No one ever, no. I'm like,
Gaffer.
network
It was that
must have
one
rushed
PA.
this. Yeah.
It's interesting too because actors do get so much accolades. Like with the Oscars are coming up, it's like, you know, half of these performances, you know, when you really do start to see how, I hate this turn of phrase, but how the sausage is made, you do start to see like, oh, that performance was like, a lot of that was editing, you know, and yet actors either get like totally raked through the coals or they get like the highest praise, which is why it can be like tricky to like manage yourself as an actor because you're either like God or you're total trash.
Yeah, it's easy to make it think it's about you too, because you're like the one that everybody sees, you know. So it's like it's you know, it's easy to kind of let that ego part take over because like the whole crew for those moments that you're filming is just focused on you. But the second they call cut, it's like it's not about you at all. It's like, all right, set up this thing. You're just a cog in the wheel. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Such a blessing too, and like also, yeah, hard to wrap your brain around.
Right. I sort of imagine movie sets kind of like one of those really old-fashioned automatons, you know, where every single piece moves a different piece and then it does something amazing if it's a really good automaton, or it could be like underwhelming if it didn't all gel together properly.
It's
But
just
yeah. Yeah, it just goes
Yeah, that's a
it's
saying
supposed
that
to be like, wow.
making that's something that like we dealt with making, you know, I've made like I make content and stuff, and one of the things that like I realized really early on is the film is only as good as your worst department, you know. Like if you can have like 4 departments that are just knocking it out of the park, but that, you know, if whatever costumes just look like super cheap or something, like it's gonna stand out, you know. You could have, so it really it's really tough that way. Everybody has to work together to make something great.
This is a bit of a side note, but you just made me think of something. I also run a film festival here in Vancouver. It's called the Vancouver Horror Show Film Festival.
Wow.
Oh, really? All right. Very cool.
We get all these submissions, and like you're saying, it's like you see these pieces of work and all these incredible talented people come together, and then the sound sucks, and you're like, none of this matters because the sound is bad. I cannot play this on a big screen, like I just can't. And it's like you feel your heart goes out to like all these like other departments that like worked so hard, and this actor that like gave it, and you're like, this is never gonna see the light of day because that one piece, that one cog in the machine screwed it up for everybody.
You're right. It's heartbreaking, but you're right.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I think.
A lot.
Wow. I mean, that must have felt horrible, right? The fact that your project is not gonna see the light due to someone else, you know, who did who did wrong the job. You know what I mean? It must have felt horrible though. So
yeah.
Now moving on here a little bit, tell me, like, do you feel as actors that you were not doing something meaningful enough, or like there is a purpose to it?
I think we talked about this last time. I'm sure you talk about it with everybody, but I have not watched all the episodes.
Yeah, it's okay.
But I went through hell and many years of therapy, feeling a lot of guilt for choosing to be an actor because I felt it wasn't useful or constructive enough, and that I wasn't like aiding society enough. And I've had to, you know, come to an understanding that, first of all, even if it isn't enough, a calling is a calling, if you want to call it that much. I was sitting with a friend of mine who is in like works in software, makes a beautiful amount of money per year, and I was like, wow, a good year for me is making 50K. That's a good year. Like, what the fuck am I thinking? Like, I have to really like this for that to be, you know, me feeling good. Like, and hopefully that's not the limit, but it's interesting. I don't think if this wasn't at least feeding my heart and feeding my soul and hopefully being of use to other people, because I know that film and TV and theater is of use to me, then I wouldn't do it for such shit money. Do you know what I mean? Like, not that people think of actors or, you know, as they think of us making no money or tons of money. Like, there's a lot of us making basic ass money in the middle. You know what I mean? So it requires a passion that I think anybody working in their passion, as long as it's not harming anybody else, is probably of aid. Anyway. Well said. Thanks.
Yeah, completely
I
agree.
totally agree. I also think, you know, you're kind of like you're sort of speaking to this idea of like secure your own, like, you know, when you're in the airplane and it's going down and it's like put your own mask on and then you can like help others. And so if you are doing something that feeds your soul, that makes you a better person as you walk through the world, that means that you like treat the Uber driver nicely and like, you know, spread joy in the little ways in which we move through the world, then that is a full stop, I think, good thing, baseline for all humans. And I would also go a little bit further to say that it is important. Sorry, like I know whatever, but I believe in stories and communication, and that's what we're doing. And I have personally been impacted by actors, by movies, by plays, by art in a way that has changed me to my very core, changed the way that I look at the world, the people I encounter, and rippled through, you know, probably those, you know, it all does matter. I really believe that. And if you are someone that can be a conduit to passing knowledge on or communicating a story to even just one person, like, let's go. Like, this is what are we here to do if not communicate with each other and connect and make better.
Here,
I completely agree with you. Yeah. I think I only ever feel like it's not enough when other people are making me feel that way. Because again, it means so much to me, and I know humans learn through story. Like, from a very young age, we learn through imitation, through communication, through trying things, through seeing things. And I think it's really the basis of, it sounds really like airy fairy, but it's like the basis of human evolution and change and culture, and it's interconnected with literally everything that we do, right? From the way our letters look to the color of our pens to like what top you're wearing, you know, to how your laptop looks. And like, so art is interconnected in everything, and I think to say it doesn't mean something to be a participant in creating art and developing art and communicating with people is, well, it's just, I just don't think it's realistic. I think it matters very much. And yeah, the only time I don't think it matters is when I say what I do and someone says something like, "Oh, that's fun."
We love that.
And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's tons of fun." Yeah. It's just fun all the time. Um and yeah. So I would say it matters very much. And I never worry I'm not doing enough.
Yeah, I agree. I agree totally. And something resonated really deeply with me is like what Megan said about putting your own oxygen mask on first. And I think the world would be a better place, you know, if everybody kind of did that in a sense. And like, could you show other people what's possible through following your dreams and doing what you know, what you feel driven to do? And the ripple effect is just like it's just you can't even fathom how much that ripples through the world and how much it changes things. I don't think any of us will ever be able to understand that, you know, just by other people kind of seeing you kind of doing your thing and just, you know, and just following these you know, and just living that artist life. It's yeah, I don't know, I agree with everything there.
Yeah, it's funny, this idea that like I'm always even surprised if somebody's seen anything I'm in. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, it's so separate from like me as a viewer, and I watch everything, and I love television from like all different types, all different budgets. I love it. I'm obsessed.
Yeah,
but
me
me
too.
as a viewer feels so separate from me as a creator, as an artist. And I kind of like it because I get to have these two relationships. When I see, somebody from like season 2, episode 7 of Goliath, I'm like, oh my God. And so I can understand that they would have that experience. I just never feel like I'm providing that same thing. So that's the work I'm still doing, is like unifying that the people I really appreciate, love, get inspiration from are me also, It's
Yeah,
like,
that you make an impact in the same way.
yeah.
And I think
Right?
you touched, we've all kind of touched on this, but this idea that like we are here to like make X amount of money until we die so that we can feel successful, and this value that is placed on what we do, which is often zero. We work for free so much, and it does call into question this idea of like value. What I do doesn't feel like it is valued, in that like, my friend who's an investment banker pulls like 300K a year, and like it's like, how do you rectify that in your and this is a whole other tangent, but it's sort of comes down to this like brainwashing, in a sense that we have been taught that that is what we're here to do. And like, I don't think any of us on this call like really believe that that's what we're here to do. And so it's sort of like there's work that needs to be done to kind of like retrain ourselves in terms of what we value and how we value ourselves. Does that make sense?
Big time.
Totally.
Yep.
Therapy for life.
Yeah. 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 I will just drop the mic, but right now just tuck it so I can drop it. But you know what? Anyway, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Now, focusing a little bit on your on your acting. Tell me, like, do you take home your characters, and has that ever affected you in a negative way?
Yeah, every once in a while. Yeah. I think it happened earlier in my career more, because I was still learning how to compartmentalize. Like, now I can leave it. I can leave it over there. It's lighter somehow. I was playing, I don't know if anybody knows this play, but do you know Albertine in Five Times? It's a play by Michelle Tremblay. It's a really great classic Canadian play, and it's about this woman, and you see her in 5 times in her life. And I was playing the time in her life where she becomes very violent with her daughter, and I have this whole monologue. It's very violent and like upsetting, and I couldn't leave it. I couldn't. It like hung on me for days and days, and made me feel very tortured and depressed and irritated and just sad. And then at that point I went, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't need to be accessing my personal memories or that kind of stuff, because I couldn't let go of it. But as you go through that process, you kind of learn how to remove yourself from the character after a while. Your brain kind of picks up and goes, oh wait, that's a different reality. That's not my reality. Um, but that's the only time I can think of where it really came home with me. And it's usually something negative if it does come home with me, something really viscerally negative or just gross and awful. Um, yeah, like violence or discrimination or something like that. Like, if a character's doing things like that, that can stick with me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say a similar thing. I don't know that I've gotten to where you are. Like, I'm not great at disconnecting myself from the character, but what I have learned to do is just, I had this commercial shoot that was like really long days, and I had to play somebody with bipolar disorder. It was a lot of crying, and like, of course they're like, hey, do you want the special eye cream? And I'm like, no, I'm doing this. I'm gonna cry for 10 hours a day in front of people in like the hot sun, because like, I'm a professional. And of course by like day 3 I'm like, your body doesn't know that that's not real. Your body is like in the trauma response of like what you have to do to put yourself into that place. And so I had to learn how to physically like do things to be like, hey, you're okay, and like put joy back into my body, if that makes sense. because I'm not good at what you were saying, Briar, like about at like disconnecting myself from that character. That is like what I did that day. So it's a bit of a trip sometimes.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I totally agree with you though.
Yeah, the trauma response. I think the one time I can remember this happening, I was playing a drone pilot and who accidentally like kills a kid, and the government's like trying to cover it up, and he's like having panic attacks, like dealing with the anxiety of it all. And I think that is the weird thing about acting is like the body doesn't know what's real. Like like the body doesn't necessarily know. So I was like doing all these like long takes where I'm like, like just doing this breathing and like popping, like, pretending to pop pills and stuff and just like freaking out and like waking up in my sleep, sweating and screaming, like these pretty intense scenes. And the only time I ever remember bringing it home was like, I think the only time I ever had like a real anxiety attack was during that shoot. And I was like at night and I literally thought I was gonna have a heart attack. I just like woke up and I was like it did come home with me. And I don't know how often it does. It probably comes home with me more than I think. but I think that's the interesting and kind of sacrificial thing about acting is like you go through these moments. You really do. If you're going through it on camera, like sometimes you do have to go through it. Like you do have to go through it. I
Yeah.
especially if it's some physical thing. I like you go through that thing and I don't even know if I've figured out necessarily the best way to be like, that was just fake, body. Don't worry. I don't know.
Someone told me once that you have to like do nice things for your body. Like you have to physically force yourself to smile, first of all, and laugh, even if you feel stupid, just
That's
to
Yeah,
like
that works.
physically counter the negative that you've done.
I like that. I'm
Yeah.
gonna use that.
hmm I also think there's room to just acknowledge that, okay, I feel like crap about this today, and that's fine. Like, let it process. If you're crying all day, then your body needs a moment to be like, I cried all day. I'm gonna feel like crap, and that's fine. Just, it's okay. It's gonna be okay, and it's normal.
Yeah, it's funny. I found that so I'm sure we all have taken classes, and like I did a few years back, probably a couple years of Meisner and pretty regularly. And I've done Meisner since I started acting. And if anybody's watching the show and doesn't know what Meisner is, it's an acting technique where the basis is repeating and answering, but you can look it up, Sanford Meisner. Anyway, that I think is what I was like, oh yeah, back in the day I would bring home, like I remember playing a stripper once, and when you play a stripper, you're stripping in front of background performers. And I really experienced a lot of shame and a lot of things that I can imagine somebody who hasn't made the decision to do that for a job would feel being thrown into that. And I guess I hadn't thought it through, and I remember that sticking with me. And then since then, I mean, I've done a lot of scenes. If we're gonna go into that world of like nude, sexual, sex, all that stuff, that's no problem for me, and nudity is no problem for me. But also just extreme circumstances, which is what people write stories about, grieving, sadness, mental illness. And I did find that going through a regular kind of period of doing Meisner work, of being so used to and encouraged to go up these waves and down and up and down, and then to just detach because the class is over. And like whatever's left over has nothing to do with reality. And I thought, oh, is that cheap? And I think we're magical beings, and that the more that I spend time working that muscle of accessing, human experience, the more my body's like, oh, okay, you want us to do this thing? Okay. Last time we did this thing, it turned out okay. We were actually safe afterwards. So I think it would be normal that the first times would be challenging, and that over time I'd be like, no, remember we did that last time and we were still okay, But again, it's really that, yeah. It usually takes me an hour if it's a big one, if it's a hard one, But I'm so grateful for that practice of just like, again, building that trust with my instrument, my emotional instrument, not just the physical instrument, of being like, yeah, we can go here. I mean, it makes me quite easy to access emotions in my day-to-day relationships, which I don't know how people feel about that, but I'm like, oh, I feel real fast. And but I don't think that's a negative. It's just a byproduct.
Right. I've always wanted them to run like an experiment on an actor and like have a brain scan going and then have them like go through the scenes and then go back to themselves and then go back into the scene and then back to themselves and to see like because actors are weird that way. We learn how to like put it over here and then come back out and put it over here and come back. We don't get confused when we're playing different characters. We still know who we are. Generally, I
break
think.
between takes? Like, do you guys break character between takes?
I do.
Depends.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Do you not? You hold it?
No, fuck. But I found that most people don't hold it. Like very rarely have I met somebody who holds it like the Jeremy Strong style. But yeah, no, I don't think that I don't feel like it hinders.
No, and I decided early on. I made the decision whether it was a good one or not. I was like, I don't want to be that actor. Like, whether it's great for people that it works for, great. But me personally, I just want to be the actor that can kind of joke around with the crew while they're doing the lighting and like setting up the next mark and just kind of, not that it's my job to do that, but I just have more fun on set that way, where I can kind of just be a part of the team and then try. I probably hindered my work early on, actually, because I maybe was a little unfocused, but I wanted to develop the muscle to just be able to, okay, all right, rolling, and then just to snap in there, once it's like sound speed, and then it's like, okay, where am I? What am I doing? And then I just wanted to learn how to do that quickly, because I don't, you can be a mood killer on set. I think if you kind of just. Yeah. Depending on what character you're playing, if you're just in it the whole time and somebody has to ask you to move and you're like, I can kind of kill the movie.
I forgot who I heard say this, but it was I think on a Roundtable. And so Dan, maybe you'll be like, it was this person in this. They were talking about they gauge the success of the movie by the success of the shoot. Like, how good was the shoot? Was everybody respected? Was everybody allowed to kind of, I think it was on the Actors Hollywood Access Women's do you guys remember this? And they were talking about how it's the quality of the set. Like, were people respectful? Did we have a good time? Was there a cohesive environment? Did everybody feel safe to do what they were doing? Was anybody being a wet blanket or whatever? And I think that's a really nice way of gauging the success of something. It has nothing to do with the success of the actual project.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Wow. Wow. Like one of the, for example, the stories that back in the day got my attention was with the case of Heath Ledger, that he gave us the best Joker performance probably, in the whole world. And how much that character pushed them into, so I find that pretty interesting. Pretty that the whole creating like this character and performing, it can take you to a very dark place if you don't kind of let it to be like, okay, this is a character, not me. I need to kind of distance myself, otherwise it's gonna consume me, and
But Heath Ledger did not die from doing the Joker. He died on the following movie of an illness because of like not being safe with his sleep and of being overexhausted and having hypothermia. Just because we associate a lot of it to his mental illness, and I think that's a bit of a spooking mechanism.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but I think he was also like the physicians had not been prescribing him like a safe cocktail of things to manage his illness as well.
Yep.
So it was just like it wasn't just. I mean, I think so maybe it was exacerbated by the process a little bit, but he was getting over it. But I think there's a lot of people failed him as well. It wasn't just the role itself.
And it was on a following movie in any event.
Yeah, that Emporium movie or something.
Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus.
Oh, yes.
Wow. But still, I would assume that it can take you to those, to those kind of like probably like dark places, but it can affect your life personally if you're playing this kind of sick character or like a character like that, basically. So.
I'm interested to know the rest of y'all how you feel about this, but I come from a background of theater. Like I came up in New York theater, and part of coming from theater is and respect that the audience is part of the show, right? So you've got the fourth wall, as it were, and part of your job as an actor on a stage is to share the story with the people in the audience. It's why we block certain ways. It's why you learn how to project and how to make it feel intimate, but actually it's like reaching the last person in the seat. And I think as I've transitioned more into film and television, I've kept that with me in that it's the camera is a part of the scene. The set is a part of the scene. And like I personally don't or very rarely get to a point where I'm like, oh, it's just me and so having an intimate conversation. Because if that's, there's a place where those like parallel lines meet and where that blurs and where you can, all of these things can be true at the same time. But if I'm just like interested in having a conversation with this person, then I'm not going to be like sharing it with I'm not going to be part of the movie in a sense. And so there's this like fine line of like, I don't like know about getting like lost in a character. I think there's value to like acknowledging that we're on a film set and we're doing a job and that this is all part of it. Does that make sense?
I think it's true. Like it's just factual. So it's like we can, Jeremy Strong stays in character, but he knows he's on set.
Right.
Like there's no way
Yeah.
he doesn't, or else that's literally being unwell, and that's not what's happening. But I like that you kind of talked about making it, mindful that there's a full group of people in front of this intimate scene where we're in bed naked. But it's, but not always a ton of people when it's that. But it's, I think, also, I'm never in my home without my environment. Like the IKEA bag that's on the floor over there, and like the fact that like I have folded, napkins to the side of me. Like I'm never not in my environment completely. And so nobody wants to see a non-human experience. Sure, elevated, but elevated doesn't mean I ignore my human experience, right? So I think that maybe it's interesting where certain actors or certain folks talk about actors as doing that. But I think that if you ask them truthfully, it's like we're taught to engage in an environment,
Yeah. And I think there's a certain amount of technique that you pick up over time as well. Like, yeah, you're having an intimate conversation with a person, but like maybe the angle's weird and you can't look directly at them. You have to look like above them slightly there. And like you're aware of an eye line. Like you're not going to just I'm not on set anymore. You know those things because that's your job and that's just the base technical skills that you pick up over time and then eventually they become second nature. You don't forget about them, but it's kind of like just part of your toolkit. I sort of feel like when it's really connecting for me, it's like dancing on top of a foundation. Do you know? Like that's all there, and you're aware, and you're feeling what's going on around you, but you're also focused in here. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Now, what has been your toughest moment as an actor so far?
I can remember. I think, it didn't help because I had just been dumped as well, always together.
Oh, shit.
But I moved to Toronto from Montreal, thinking that I would have kind of what you talked about earlier with the gatekeeping. I thought that I would have the same access to jobs that I did in the city where I had gained momentum. My momentum was very small, but I had gained some. So I figured I'll just transfer over here. I'll be able to find representation, no problem. This will be smooth. This is what I want. And I'm gaining success and people are telling me positive things. Of course, it will move right over. And it did not. And I can remember for me, like it's been more around representation than anything. And I feel this is like a bit shameful to talk about because I'm like, oh, here I am. I'm a person in the world and I work pretty consistently, and I feel really proud of the work that I do. But like getting representation, my agent now is a sweet angel man, and I'm really grateful for him. But it has been some of the hardest times ever because the feeling of worthlessness, that having to bank on yourself and ask for someone to also bank on you, and getting constant no's. When I tell you that it's not been, nobody's like, yes, Rebecca. Oh no, I have so many to pick from. That's never been my experience. And I was like, I don't understand. I work. Why wouldn't you want to represent me? And it's like, just is. It is what it is. And that, the depression that has put me in over time, and like, obviously now I have more self-worth, but um that's been hell. Those were I can remember 2 periods, once when I first moved to Toronto, and then when I was switching from my first agent who wasn't very good, to the one I'm with now. Those dips were because I put all my eggs in this basket, you know? So if it doesn't work out, it's really deeply wounding. Yeah.
Mine's kind of similar. It also coincided with a move. I got out of sort of drama school here. I went to U of T, which has a very small drama program that I went to, and I got out, and I mean, not a single bite from anyone, right? No representation at all. And I kept being told over and over again, oh, you need more training, you need more training. And I kind of agreed with that. I did sort of feel like I couldn't measure up to the people who had gone to really lovely schools like York, or the National Theatre School, or Ryerson, or something like that. And so I decided I was going to go to the UK and get some training. And I remember on the day I had to leave, I don't know what happened. I think my brother was late to take me to the airport, and then I just had a complete meltdown. I had a complete, utter meltdown about moving to a new country where I didn't have any family, being on my own, starting a very intensive acting program with nobody I knew. And I had to just kind of pick myself up and do it anyway. And I got there, and I got through the year, and it was fine. It wasn't perfect, but the training was great, and I really enjoyed that. But again, it was kind of like starting over. And then, I stayed there for a little while and did some stuff, but then I had to come back to Canada, and I've only been back in Canada since COVID started. So it's been kind of like rebuilding again and starting again. And who are you? And now nobody cares that I had training, right? Everyone told me to go get training, went and got training, got some experience, came back. It's still kind of like, so what? And that can be very, very difficult. It can be really difficult. But that one moment going to a new country by myself, that was the hardest, I think, thing I ever did. That was really, really hard. And yeah, but it was worth it, I think, I hope. Yeah. Fingers crossed, yeah.
Mine, I guess mine's like kind of a recent one. I don't know if, this question is hard because we go through so many like mini heartbreaks every week. Like every week I get my heart broken at least once, and if I don't, it's Christmas because everything's shut down. But so there's a lot of that, and I'm a writer too, and so I get my heart broken on another level as a writer as well. But during COVID, when self-tapes were really kicking off, and suddenly we're auditioning so much, or at least I was over here, and it's like they're seeing 1 million people, so you're auditioning exponentially more often and getting much less jobs. And I'd been on like hold after hold after hold. I'd been fired from the last commercial that I was on because the child that they'd hired to play my daughter got COVID. So it was just like totally happenstance. I hadn't worked in like longer than I'd ever not worked. And it was COVID, and I was poor, and it was just the pressure of, whatever. And I booked this job, and I'm like, okay, great. I went in, I knew I like this part was mine. I booked it. I had them laughing. It was like, yes, okay, check marks. as we're like getting to like first day to go to my like wardrobe, I'm like not hearing from the production, and I'm like, oh, what's going on? Talk to my agent. Well, I don't know. You should be hearing. Long story short, at like 11 o'clock that night, I finally get a call from like the assistant of somebody whose like voice is trembling and starts crying on the phone with me to be like, you're not in the commercial. You don't have the job anymore. And I was like, I'm like consoling her on the other end of this phone to be like, oh, thank you for telling me, like, da, da, da. And I got off that phone call and I was just like, what the actual, like, it was just after everything, that was like the last straw. And I was like, what a industry where like, shit rolls downhill and like actors just, either get treated like gold or get treated like total trash. And that was my second firing after, never being fired as an actor before. And then suddenly in like 3 months, I'm fired twice. And I was like, hard to pick yourself back up after those.
Yeah, I was like thinking about telling like just a stage horror story or something, but you got it so personal. So like, I guess I think this one is more recent, and it was basically right after like film sets started coming back, and it was a commercial actually. I booked this big commercial, huge company with an A-list celebrity, and it was and I was really excited about it. I was like, yeah, I get to be back on set and I get to like do this thing, and I went to set, and I just like, those days where you just know you killed it, where everyone's just like clapping and they're just like, oh, you rocked it. Like their whole entourage was like, you were freaking amazing, man. And I was like, yeah, I just couldn't wait, because I kind of got to be the punchline of this whole commercial spot, and it was and I just couldn't wait for it to come out. And then I guess like a couple months later, I just get a message being like, yeah, they just scrapped that commercial. It basically, like, for them, it's like deleting a TikTok, I guess, like these big companies. And I'm just like, no, like this happens so much, like whether you get cut from a scene that you're excited about, and usually it's never your fault either. It's always just like, you just needed to time it a certain way or something, or who knows how that commercial turned out or why it got cut. I don't necessarily think like that, but it's just, it really is disappointing, because that was like the first big one back. And I was just like, this is going to be so awesome once it airs everywhere. It's going to be so cool to have this footage with this person. And it was, that's a bummer, but like you said, there's many heartbreaks every week. I'm also a writer too. And I it's similar, but different too with that, when you have to, as they say, kill your babies and, change a whole script that you feel so passionately about. But yeah,
a whole different chamber in your heart that you didn't even know could break.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Something you invest in for like a year, and then they're just like, just change that part. And it's like, but that's the whole. And then it's like, no, you got to just take that out. It's like, yeah, it's so nonchalant. But that's the part. I think the life of an artist. You don't have any big one moment, but a lot of those little moments throughout the career that you just got to get used to.
Wow. And like how you managed to handle that feeling, because it has happened to me a few times now. I mean, not anymore, but back when I started, it used to happen. It used to happen a lot. The fact that I will interview this actor or actress, and then I would be like, oh, I was focusing exclusively only on IMDb. My problem was that I didn't realize until later is that sometimes they will, as you mentioned, I would cut them off. From this production, there was this actor who appeared in Modern Family with the whole cast, everything. It was a great scene. He was excited about, and then when I asked him about that, he told me that he got cut off. And the problem was that he invited all of his family friends so they can enjoy the episode and everything. Oh, yeah. And then the episode he was cut out, and then everyone was asking him like where were you? So like how you handle, like how you manage to overcome that situation and be like, yeah, okay, whatever, and just move forward.
I just ran into someone last week. This is just a small thing, but I'd been cut out of a commercial a couple of years ago, and I just ran into this guy that was in the commercial with me, and we were like, "Oh, hey, great to see you." And then as he's leaving, he's like, "Oh my God, that commercial just paid." Like he's like that. Wow, that was a little gift that got me through the last couple of years. And I was like, I just swallowed it. Like I didn't have to tell him. Like I didn't see any of that.
Oh no.
That's awesome.
Funny. I've been the asshole on the receiving end of the money and being like, oh my God, our commercial's out. And they're like, yeah, no, they cut me. I was a background performer. I was like, oh. But there's a show called Blood and Treasure that was shooting years ago in Montreal, and I had one of the most fun parts, like wigged action, shooting, running, stilettos, ba 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 ba, explode. They blew up a van. We ran it late. It was amazing, and it was like the backstory of probably, let's call him number 7 on the call sheet. You know what I mean? So not the main top 4, number 7 backstory. Why is he a villain? I'm the queen of villain backstories, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And I remember I did, like those small accomplishments is, we had a scene where we were intimate and I was able to stay fully present during that scene. And I was like, oh, this is fine. I'm connected. Cause sometimes like when I was younger, I'd freeze up, I'd get nervous, but I was connected. It was great. I was comfortable. Anyway, I was blonde. It was amazing. And when it came to watching the episode, the amount of times I scanned through the episode slowly to see where my part was, and it was all gone. All gone. The entire guy's backstory was gone. The amount of fucking money they wasted. They blew up a van in the middle of the old port in Montreal.
Yeah.
This can't be about me. I can't have been so bad that they threw all that away. So it's just too bad because I was like, can I get that footage though? And they're like, no, we didn't edit it. We're going to use it anyway. It's really disappointing, but yeah, it just baffles me that productions can afford this kind of mistake, and it's what's so cool about streaming now is that they no longer have the constraints of a 40-minute allowance because of commercials on network. So I'm just like, I find that there's less lost now that shows don't have to obey a certain amount of time. Do you know what I mean? Do you guys find that as well?
Yeah, I think so. I got cut from Handmaid's Tale, and I got like a bunch of people watching it, and it was like some people still watch it to this day, which is great. They're fans of it now, but they're like, that was one where I learned early on. It's just like don't tell people until it's out. It's just like because
you found your scene,
until you find your scene. The second you find it, then it's like, hey, everybody, I was in this. But until then, you just can't know. But from a producer standpoint, actually, because I just made a feature that I wrote and acted in and everything, but there was a whole sequence that was probably some of our most expensive stuff at the beginning that we cut completely. And it was really hard to make that decision, but it was all about story. It was not even about the actors were amazing. Everything was great. These people came out and gave their hearts and souls for like a couple days. And it really wasn't about that at all. It was literally about, okay, the story, and we were doing test audiences, and it was kind of like, it was a little convoluted and it just made things a little bit too complicated. So we just simplified it. And a lot of the time, that's what it comes down to too, is like people will watch it in the edit and be like, that was maybe a writing mistake that could have been caught, but didn't. That it's just like, this just doesn't quite make as much sense as if we cut this out, we don't even need it. You know what I mean? So that, I think that happens a lot too. And my Handmaid's thing was a backstory thing too. So I think they probably just decided they don't need that backstory. They're like, it's better if we don't show that villain's backstory. Maybe it's just more mystery or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think a lot of the times you can't tell what's going to work on film until you film it. And you can't tell what's going to be necessary, what's going to tell the best story until you're editing.
Totally.
And it might seem super important right up until that moment, and you go, oh, gotta cut it. And I don't think it's anybody's, you can't point at someone and be like, it's your fault. It's just
I
the
do
name
know
of the
some
game.
people who are cut for being trash though. Like, and that's real. That's gotta
What?
we gotta have
it happens.
Yeah, for sure.
It happens. But even another one recently, this is a short one, but it was another feature that one of the, like, this heartfelt monologue, that's the arc of my character, that whole scene, like, I made the feature still but that whole scene got cut, which and it was a technical thing. It was because they did this super crazy camera move that was they had to green screen a bunch of stuff, and it was like they got like one shot, where they have to lock it in. And I talked, like, I know the director, so I was just talking to her about it, and she was like, we love the scene, but we just couldn't do it because the technical aspect of it didn't work. So sometimes it's just that, or the sound or maybe sound they could always ADR, but yeah, certain things, like maybe it's just out of focus, and they're like, shit.
Yeah.
Can we just take a minute? You just finished a feature film that you wrote and directed and acted in?
I didn't direct it. I co-wrote it and I acted in, and and it's
Amazing.
Thank you.
Congrats.
I might submit it to your festival. It's a survival thriller, so
Send it my way.
It's called Walking Supply.
Thank you. Thank you for the plug. It's about a couple guys. We break out of a prison, and then I find out the only reason I was brought along, we have to travel thousands of miles through the wilderness, and I find out the only reason I was brought along is in case they need to eat. So it's like an intense survival thriller, and I'm really excited about it. It's been 7 years. Just to, like, I'm a huge believer in making our own content. Dan and I talked about this when I was on the show earlier, but it's been 7 years in the making. We did the short 7 years ago. We did the feature. We had so many ups and downs where we kept on getting shut down, or we'd almost be filming it, and then it would be like, no, you can't. And then finally, it just all the stars aligned, and we filmed it like last year in the dead of winter. Went to Alberta, Ontario, did a bunch of But it's
I can't believe you did that with Doug. Doug is my coach and my sweet angel.
Doug is like probably one of my top coaches of life. He taught me so much. I didn't know that he was your coach as well. I've learned so much from him, and he co-wrote it with me. Like, we wrote it together.
I know. I just saw
with Derek
putting things up about it, but I've never connected that your name was on it. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, he's been on the journey since the short. He acted in it 7 years ago. We brought him out. It was just a co-op at that time, and we auditioned him. I was his camera op at Armstrong. I was like his little minion.
God, you were.
I was his little minion. I just sit beside him and listen to everything he said, and I'm like, "You're a genius, Doug." And then all of a sudden now we're acting together and writing together, and
this podcast is really just a plug for Doug Nyback.
This is the Doug Nyback hour here. But I love that guy, and he's really good in this too. He did a great job.
Congratulations nonetheless.
Thank you. But I guess the point of my long rant is it was a freaking long journey that I didn't expect it to be like a 7 year plus, and we're just getting started with festivals now. So probably by the end of this, it's going to feel like 9 years, 10 years to bring this thing to fruition, which is it's crazy. It's crazy.
That's badass. All right, now something that got my attention recently is I saw this interview that they did to Brendan Fraser, and he was gonna play this villain of a new Batgirl film that they were gonna release, but it got canceled. So the film is never gonna be out and everything. And in that interview, he was mentioning that they record the whole thing, the whole action scenes, the explosions, and the whole everything was recorded, but it never got to see the light of it. So I must assume that it must have been. I mean, that it feels strange, right? That you give your best performance on something and then you were not there, or perhaps like the whole project is never going to see the light of it. So yeah.
The whole movie got deleted, like it was just a draft in their Instagram.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. That was probably a 30 million, probably close to $100 million movie. It's wild.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Now, moving on here a little bit. Tell me, guys, if you couldn't act, what would you pursue?
I'd be a novelist. I'd be a writer, I think. Either that or graphic design, like animation, something to do with video games. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I am a writer. I'd be a writer. And I think I would get into psychology. I think that acting is like really scratching like a psychology nerve. It's like humans, man. I'm so into it.
Right.
Yeah. I think, obviously like writing, directing, producing, but I kind of do that already. So I'll give another example. I think if I wasn't fully in on this, I'd want to be a comedian. I respect that art form so much, but I'm just like, I too much stuff to go on to like try to master that craft. But I just respect them. It's just them and a mic, and and they just have to get up in front of a crowd and live or die by their, like, it's just totally and I just respect the bravery that it takes to do that night after night and like fail live time in front of people. I'd want to do that, I think.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
I did that one time in high school because we had like a unit where we had to get up and do like comedy special for like 10 minutes. Oh my God, it was so brutal. It was the worst. I will never I'll never put myself through that again ever. Oh,
Longest 10 minutes of your life?
oh my God. It was like, like when you get really mortified and your entire body goes like your heart kind of sinks and then your breathing gets short and then your legs start to go like, oh, and then you feel white hot, just white all over your body. And it's like chills.
That's so
It was that
scary.
for 10 minutes.
Did you
I
write
don't
it all?
know.
Did
Yeah,
you write?
you had to write it yourself. So they were your own jokes.
Oh,
And you're like 15 years old and the high school bullies are sitting in the front row. Like,
oh, that's
crap.
that's abuse. That's abuse.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
terrible unit.
Yeah, that's not cool. That's
Yeah.
not cool. They should never do that to
Yeah.
people. But any good comedian says you got to bomb. Like you literally have to bomb like hundreds of times before you even get good. So that to me is just you get up there.
Mad respect.
Oh God, yeah. To get to mad respect.
They're a special breed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you will hear some pretty crazy funny stories from comedians when they were recently started. That, for example, Kevin Hart, once he got through a chicken wing to his cheek, or things like that, or like or like for that Jamie Foxx did a joke on Mike Tyson, and then when he threw it out, everyone was quiet, and then someone says Mike Tyson is in the room. I think like that, in which, I would assume that is super scary. Yeah, it's definitely a total breed there, a totally different breed there.
Yeah. And the difference between doing a joke, I know this is the comedy podcast, but like you could do a joke one night that just hits because you get the timing perfectly, and then you do a joke the other night and everyone's just like it just doesn't quite hit, and it just turns the room against you. Like it's just such a fine art form that I don't know, I respect it deeply, but I don't think that's another life.
Yeah, something like that could relate a little bit on that is, for example, DJ. I mean, I used to perform on bars and clubs here and there, and it's the exact same thing. I mean, you can't play the same songs every night. You can't. You need to play, play with people to see where can you go here and there, because if you play the same thing over and over, it's not gonna cut it. And then once when you see people running out the dance floor and sitting, you're like, oh crap, I'm doing a horrible job. So.
Well, anytime something's live, right? It's the energy in the room, that audience, it becomes this thing that is living and breathing. And so if you're just trying to regurgitate something, it's the same with theater. If you're trying to just hit something that you did last night that really worked, but you're ignoring the energy in the room and you're not actually present for this particular performance and this particular collective of audience members, then you're gonna trip a little.
Yeah. That's why I don't do interview lives anymore. But anyway, I mean, it is challenging, and it is tough, especially if once you realize there are 500 or 600 people tuning in at that exact moment you're having the interview. I mean, it is super challenging because even though that they're watching, you need to be or example, that was what I was telling myself every single day. Be super careful in what you say, but most important, don't look nervous, or think like that. So it's super scary and tough.
Yeah.
So.
Have any of you all ever done live television, an interview or something? That's the closest I can think of what that feels like, because it is the train has left the station. We've got 5 minutes and this needs to be said, and it's just it's such a rush, but it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Kind of. It wasn't really it was in university. For some reason, I got picked to be on the Stephen and Chris show. Do you guys remember that show? It was on CBC for
vaguely
years. And it was a live segment. It was called Good to Go, and it was about this book they were writing for kids who just gone to university who didn't know how to do laundry and things like that. Is your kid good to go? And it was a live taping, and they wanted to interview us for some reason. We were sitting in the front row, and it was live. And
good to go what though? Good to go.
Good to go, good to go to university.
Oh, okay, got it.
They were finding that a lot of people go to university and don't know how to do basic things
that was me.
Oh, how do I know when the bacon's done?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they asked me what would you do if you have a piece of clothing with like a rip in it? And I was like, I mean, if it's like a sock, I guess I'd just throw it out. But if it's something nice, probably sew it up. And that was like a surprising answer because I think they wanted me to be like, oh, I don't know.
Oh God.
I'm young and dumb, kind of.
Turns out you were good to go.
I was
You were
good to go. Yeah.
That
There you
sounds
go.
so
Good to go.
so condescending. They're just like,
Yeah.
do you know what you do if your clothes rip? Like, what kind of question is that? If you're like,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Now, moving on here, tell me, is there a film that you saw recently that has changed your way of thinking about something?
I know. Oh yeah, go for it. You go first. You go
No,
first.
you go first.
I got
went
one.
first last time.
Okay. I like this. We're so generous with our time here. I saw what was it called? The Triangle of Sadness. Has anyone
Yes.
seen that?
Yes.
Holy crap! Did that like? It's just it really like. I mean, I always kind of knew the idea that like once you have power, it's like it's kind of you don't want to give it up because there's just so much benefit to the so the people in power like they don't want to give it up, right? And it's obviously like a very fascinating kind of story that's told really creatively about I guess capitalism and classism and like all these different like levels and layers and like the workers. And I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, so I'm not gonna spoil the movie, but it's definitely worth watching. But it's this idea that like it just really hit home for me. Like it was done so beautifully where I was just like it just shows you so well like, once you're at the top, like you're not going to want to give it up. And it just really lays out very simply like what kind of I don't know, it just kind of hit home on a different level than anything I've ever seen before. And it's it's done really well. The performances are really subtle. And I don't want to say, I think I'd spoil it too much if I said it, but that particular movie is definitely worth checking out because it I guess it changed the way I viewed the world a bit. But in some ways, for sure, it definitely affected me as a piece of art, and I was like, this is next level.
I totally agree. And also just to piggyback off of that, structurally, the way that, and without spoiling too much, the structure of that film, bit of a clue in the name, but it takes you on these twists and turns and really like just it changed the way I thought about like filmmaking and storytelling. I also loved the subject matter, like everything you said, like 100%. And then on another level, just in terms of the structure and the filmmaking of it all, it was really cool.
I didn't even touch on that, but I agree. Yeah, the structure of it was also a whole other level. Like the production, just to say what's possible, because we get stuck as writers in these Save the Cat and beat sheets and all these things, and it just totally takes you on. It changes the genre of the film like 3 times.
Yeah,
and it's like, I mean, that's incredible. You don't find that in any like kind of writing book,
Yeah, cool. I gotta see this. Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah, it's nominated for Best Picture. It's nominated for Best Picture.
Watched it.
I've seen.
I actually want to watch all the Best Picture nominations this year.
I'm 3 away.
Say every year.
Yeah, I usually I didn't get to them last year, but I'm like 3 away. I think I got like 3 more, but I'm gonna do it before the Oscars. So I will do
every year I'm like, I'm gonna watch all of them, and then I like watch 1, maybe 2.
Yeah, fair.
I think weirdly, I haven't seen a lot of movies recently. I've seen more TV shows and stuff, but the last movie that I saw that was really impactful, it wasn't a narrative movie. It was a biopic on Buffy St. Marie. It's called Buffy St. Marie, Carried On. She's like a great songwriter and singer, and she's Native American, and it's just about her story and about finding her identity because she was adopted as a young Aboriginal girl, and she sort of had to find her own family and figure out who she was. And it didn't seismically change like my thinking on something, like in that way, like make a complete U-turn or something, but it definitely really the movie is a lot about censorship and the censorship of Native peoples and women in the industry when she was coming up. in the industry, which was in, back in the 60s, 70s. And just the amount of erasure that she'd gone through, and it pointed out some really weird things, like she was on Sesame Street. She was the first Native person on Sesame Street, and she was like a main character. They liked her so much, and then her family was on there, and then she had a baby on there, and she was breastfeeding
On Sesame Street?
on Sesame Street.
What?
And no one cared.
That's
Literally,
good. I
no,
mean, that's
not
good to see.
not
But
hardly anybody wrote in being like, "Oh, that's so gross," and blah 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 blah. How could you show that? And she says, and she was like, nobody cared when it came out, and then years later they rerun the episode, and then people cared, and it just kind of pointed it out to me that censorship is so dumb. It's the bottom line. It just changes. There's no rhyme or reason to it at all. Morality shifts around, and it's so silly. It's just so silly that we try to control the narrative so much. I don't know, that was really, it just really brought it to the forefront. It's a really great documentary about her career, because she had made a huge impact on the music industry, but you wouldn't know it because the American government put her on a watch list as a terrorist.
What the hell?
When she wasn't doing anything. She was just an artist, and they basically erased her from the industry.
Wow. Holy.
She was banned. They weren't allowed to play her. She went from being like a top selling artist to nothing.
And what was this about mainly, do you think? It wasn't the breastfeeding thing, it was something
It was around the time, no, it wasn't the breastfeeding. That had absolutely nothing to do with it. It was she had written some anti-war songs.
Ah, there you go.
And it was
That's
right around the time when there was, I think, Wounded Knee happened. And I mean, I saw this like a while ago, so I might be misremembering, but yeah, it was there was a really anti-Aboriginal movement going on in the government, and she was, unfortunately, her career was just axed.
Wow.
And I think it was just really eye-opening, very less changing my mind. I already knew about things like that, but very eye-opening, drove the point home that censorship is stupid and just harmful.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Well, yeah, that's wow. Yeah, a question that just comes to my mind is, you as an like you guys as an actors, how you manage that? I mean, you get a script, right? You get a script for this project, you check it out, and once you realize perhaps there's gonna be some trouble there, let's say, or like where you are about to perform, you're like, let's see what happens. Like how you manage to kind of overcome that, or be like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. It might cause that, but who cares?
You mean like a controversial role, like
controversial
something?
Role, yeah, like controversial role or a scene or something like that,
Yeah. I think there's like an intention thing that always it comes back to, like, whoever, the filmmaker, the writer, what's the intention of the piece? Because if I can play a villain, I can get there, but it's like, what's what's the story that's being told at the end of the day? If the story that's being told fundamentally kind of like goes against how I, something that I would want to put forward into the world, then I think I would be, a little selective and maybe not take on that project. But in the service of a story that is exciting and that I want to tell, I'm like, let's go, let's get into the why. I also think it's important that, there are villains and that we humanize them and tell that story, because it's all part of it. And it's like actually a great challenge to find the humanity in someone who might be perceived as a villain. Nobody's walking through the world being like, I'm the worst. Everyone
True.
is the hero of their own story. So if you're doing your work, you can find how that character is the hero of their own story, even if they're not the hero of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great empathy that comes, I think, with being an actor, where you do have to put yourself in these shoes that you wouldn't necessarily think that way. And for me, yeah, there's no real role that I would ever turn down based on like, oh, this person's too evil or anything like that. But it does come down to context of story. If it's like something super gratuitous and just, senseless, then that doesn't make sense. But if it's like a really interesting story that I can get behind and try to bring some sort of humanity, because that is humanity, the darkness and the light. And if we just show the light, it's almost like you need to show the darkness, like you need to bring light to it, and you need to kind of show those sides for sure to show what humans are capable of. Because I mean, throughout history, there's very good examples of us being capable of terrible things over and over and over again. So we learn a lot through those stories too, and honestly, they're kind of fun to play bad guys too. You gotta admit, like, because we go through life so kind of polite and courteous and this, so it's fun just kind of to let out that side a little bit sometimes.
I agree with you. I think the only thing that I wouldn't do is if something doesn't serve the story, or if the story itself is promoting something that is harmful to people. If you're playing someone who is racist or something, and the message of that movie is that you're not the villain and that's okay, I would never, like, it's very much about context and what what the movie or the project is trying to do. So I would never do something like that, and I would never do something exploitative, like I have a cousin who was asked to be in the Human Centipede.
Ooh,
yeah.
And that's a movie I wouldn't do.
I don't think I'd do that. I don't think I'd go that far either. That's like the limit for a lot of actors, I think. Would you want to act as the middle? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe
right?
I'd be the
like,
front. I might be. No, I'm just.
He wanted her to be the main character, and I was like, and she was like, no. And to me, that would just be exploitative. That's just people being in misery for the sake of having people on screen be in misery. And I don't want to participate in that. I think that's sad. It's like deeply upsetting. Yeah.
Shock horror. They call it torture porn. It gets coined.
Yeah, torture porn. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you really have to look at what's the intention, what's the impact, like what are we saying, what are we doing, and then once you can like tick those boxes, like fun, can be so, like you're saying, it can be so fun to go there.
It's also okay to have boundaries too, though. I think if someone's not okay doing nudity or doing something, that's completely fine. Like, you're allowed to have your nose.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's okay. 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, otherwise, I would assume that if you do it not wanting to do it immediately, like the whole scene where you appear is not gonna cut. Perhaps you're not gonna cut it, or you're gonna be. What I'm saying here is that everybody's gonna notice. That it wasn't like that you didn't like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that is also why, like, for anybody watching that's like maybe an aspiring actor or something, like nudity, like riders are so important, and so you basically like have contracts before you do the scene of exactly how much you can show and what you're comfortable showing, so you can literally like stop the production, like take them to court, or if they show more than they say, because sometimes they're going to be filming more than they say, and then they're going to have to edit around or whatever. But that's why it's really important to know. It is really important to know your boundaries, because these things, they go out to the world.
Yeah, and the other thing to really watch is safety. If you're being asked to do a stunt, and then suddenly you're asked to do a very dangerous stunt or something you haven't been trained to do or was not in your contract,
Yeah.
it's okay to be like, I'm not comfortable, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And make
and
sure
it's so
in your
hard.
writer.
It's hard to do
It's so
that
hard
because
to
there's
say
so
no.
much pressure on the day because everyone's like, we got to move. We only got like 1 hour of the scene. Hey, do you mind just jumping off this thing? It's like, wait.
Yeah.
You got to take charge. Yeah.
Your safety is not as important as people being happy and loving you all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
okay. Put yourself first.
I actually saw a real like an A-list. Maybe I won't name drop him just because I don't know if he'd want the story up. But I saw him. He showed it on the first day on set. But I saw him take charge so well of the stunt because there's a stunt where he has to fall and everything. And he was just like, "How many times are we doing this?" Like he's like, "I'll give you one in the wide, but after that, like I'm done." So like he was so polite about it. But basically, just like knew his limits. He was like, yeah, I'll do this once for you in a wide, but that's all you get from me, basically. So make sure it's like set up right, and then we'll do that, and then it was like a stunt double. It was really cool to witness him do it. So like you can take charge and still be like a good teammate, essentially.
You have to advocate for yourself and have agency and absolutely have boundaries and be able to communicate them and assert them in a way that doesn't make you feel guilty. And I think too, as I think for women, especially, that can be really challenging, especially if it's a male dominated set, or if it does have to do with nudity or anything like that. There are, and I think it's getting better, and I hope it's getting better. There are times where, the contract says one thing and then you're being asked to do something in real time, and there's a pressure situation, and you don't want to be the one that's like stopping, the time, and so, yeah, it is like so important to be in touch with your agency and your boundaries. And
I think it's really in the forefront of the news right now because of the whole Rust incident.
Oof, yeah.
That's an example of anybody should have been like, this is not how we do things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
and it doesn't happen enough on sets, to be honest. I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it's one thing to say it, but then when the clock's running out and the sun's going down and you have like a half an hour left, it's easy to kind of get complacent. 100%.
Yeah. I do believe that there is some that they're kind of changing like a little bit of that. I once interviewed an intimacy coordinator. Basically, what she does is that for the sex scenes, she will coordinate them before, be like, okay, this is how we're gonna do it. You're gonna do this, like she coordinates everything. And one of the things that she was telling me is that she wants to make sure that during the scene everyone feels comfortable to it. That everyone is agree on that. Everyone is good to go. They know what to do, where to go, and that's it. In order to prevent those type of situations that later on you're like, they release more on that, or why they put that when I said no, things like that. So yeah. Now, let's say that you guys one day you could change one thing right now about the film industry. What would it be and why? What thing could you change right now?
Well, Briar, I think you hit on something that's big earlier in our conversation, which is the gatekeeping. And I don't know how that looks in terms of changing, but it is such a thing at every level of this industry. And so I guess what I would want to change is that sort of, it feels like the keys to the kingdom rest in the hands of like very few people. And I just would like to change that. I would like different people. I would like more diversity in positions of power, and more diversity initiatives in terms of like what is getting greenlit, and I would just say the gatekeeping. I think there's a real club, an old boys club happening, and I want to tear it the hell down.
Yep.
I feel like on the topic of gatekeeping, one thing that just bugs me so much is that, like, just because I'm getting into creating my own content and producing and writing and everything, it's this hush-hushness about the budget. And I understand this is the one thing I would change, because it would make lives so much easier if we could all just be honest about what a film cost, because nobody is honest about it. It's like it's like impossible to find realistic budgets of anything, and you're trying to do comparables, and you're like, I gotta pitch this, and you ask somebody, like even a producer, like, hey, how much was it? It's like, oh, we can't tell you. It's like this like real hush hush thing, and even with our film, like we're not allowed to like say what the budget is, for different reasons. But it's like, I just wish it wasn't like that. I wish we could just be like, hey, it was, made for this. And I guess part of it is they're trying to sell it for more maybe. And part of it is, I don't even know. It's just very hush hush. Even in the distribution side of things, it's really hard to get like concrete numbers of like, how much did this really make? And it just makes me wonder about trust and residuals and where, it just would be really nice if that was just all more of an open book, because I think that there's some clever producing going on sometimes, and I would like to, to bring light to that.
Yeah. I'm sort of wondering how to phrase this. I think the thing I would change is I'd like there to be less Hollywood dominance. I'd love to share the love around a little bit more for international film and Canadian film and all of that. And connected to Hollywood dominance, I'd really love to see some normal looking people in big films. Like, not everybody has to be a model to be working. But that's kind of what we see. And even today, like, look at all the actors who are, I mean, they're wonderful actors. But everybody is so beautiful. And I think it's an unrealistic standard, and Hollywood is very dominant, and Marvel is everywhere, and big blockbusters are everywhere, and that's what most people know, and that's what people see and what they think is normal. And I would just like to see a regular person acting and being talented and having a place in film, more places in film, because there's so many people who don't look like a CW actor and are so talented and don't get called in or don't get that role because they're not, I don't know, like super skinny and wrinkle free and I think it is changing a little bit, but not enough, in my opinion. I would love to see more Olivia Colmans. You know?
Yeah. Especially in the indie scene, and I think it's changing a lot.
Yeah.
Because there's just a lot of interesting these like indie kind of character studies that are happening. But yeah, I don't think maybe as much necessarily in Hollywood. Yeah. I don't think I'll be playing like Spider-Man anytime soon.
Who knows?
We'll see.
Yeah, but it's true. I do. For example, that is one of the things that I mentioned in one of my episodes before. That I remember that back when I was a kid, you will never hear of indie films that you will see on the cinema. You will always gonna see the Hollywood one, the big blockbuster ones. And then when I started this whole platform, it was, I mean, even till this day, it's hard for me sometimes whenever I want to see either a project from an actor that either that I'm gonna interview or I have interviewed before. Even to this day, it's hard to find those type of projects. I mean, the big ones you will find it like that. I mean, you could go to HBO, Disney Plus, you name it, right? But finding like the indie ones is super hard. And when you watch them, as I have said, I mean, some of them are really cool and really well made. And I would appreciate that too, that they can that those performances and those projects as well get the chance to see the light to more people, which I do think that maybe they're doing that a little bit more, but there's still a long way to it. For example, also with European cinema, same thing here. Back when, like here in Mexico, I mean, it was super rare to see a European film. You were always gonna see the Hollywood one. So yeah, I can understand that.
Think about like the budget of a Marvel movie, and like if you were to shave off a small percentage of that budget, it would make 10 amazing indie features. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
tiny for a fraction that they might not even feel. It's just like it's the 1% situation.
Yeah, which I do think that is why some people don't think that there are not many actors around. Like with this thing has happened too, that when I say that I interview actors, the first thing they will tell me like, oh, have you interviewed like Chris Hemsworth or like someone like big A1. I'm like, no. I mean, I would do it at some point, but right now I'm just interviewing everyone that I can hear, because there's this huge ocean. There's this huge amount of actors around that they perform, they do amazing things, but yet again, I mean, there's no there's no there is not enough light, so more people can know about them. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with you. I was talking to a producer, this person I know, and she was saying, why isn't there somewhere to go to watch all the indie films? Why isn't there a Netflix just for indie films? Like, how do I watch all these amazing Canadian films that are being made, that I know they're being made, but they're like at a festival and then gone,
Yeah.
right? And where do you
Long
watch
time.
them? Like, and the average person, like grandma down the road, doesn't know that there's TIFF Lightbox. Okay, so like, how do we bring that forward and make it more accessible and make it more more of an obvious thing for people to enjoy and
Yeah.
participate in?
Yeah, and even if you had to pay something, like a monthly subscription, like the other streaming services, I would be fine with that. I'd be like, yeah, sure, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we have a Netflix for history channel stuff, and we have Netflix for like costume design, and
Yeah.
but we don't have Netflix for indie films.
Yeah. I think there's some channels that I really enjoy, like IFC, like the independent,
Yeah.
that they put on really, they have really interesting curated stuff. But yeah, but yeah, as far as like a streaming service goes, not that I know of. Like, yeah, I haven't seen that. Crave is, I guess, Crave Canada puts on some cool like indie like Canadian content because they have to, because there's like the law, they have to put a certain amount of Canadian.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing like just for that.
And it's a more complicated puzzle, right? Because the marketplace is so saturated, because we have so many, how many like Marvel movies come out in a year? I have no idea. But it's like, then you've got your independent films, and of course there's no budget for the marketing, and there's no like, so it's like then you have this saturated marketplace, and you've got, something being shoved down your throat from like ads and star power and however else it's like coming into your consciousness. Of course, like a passive viewer is going to be like, oh, I've heard about that, I want to see that. Like when you don't have the marketing dollars to put that behind something independent that like, might be a better movie, but it's never going to see the light of day because we're so saturated with all of this, like, all these huge movies all the time. It's like it's a tricky puzzle to solve. Even if you did have the platform, which is a great idea, it's like, where does the money come from to like then make that the thing that people click on?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Like the whole marketing they put on those films. I mean, not only the ads, but the merchandise, T-shirts, hoodies, toys. Like all of the merchandise they put on that. I mean, it's huge. So yeah, it would be good if they can, as I said, at least like here in Mexico, there is no way to actually find indie films. You need to watch on. I mean, you need to really dig on the internet. That perhaps you will find it, but even then, I mean, it is one of the things that I still struggle even to this day. That whenever I want to talk about a project, it's super hard, or if I find it, I'm super lucky. Or sometimes they will either the actors or the directors, they will give me like a release on that, so I can watch it on my own, and be like, okay, it's cool, now we can talk about it. But I would appreciate they can show more, like they can show people that there is more stuff to watch instead of the typical ones, which they're fine, of course, but more stuff, that there is more indie here, there's more stories here that perhaps they don't have this huge sci-fi scenes or this huge budget, but the whole script and the acting is pretty cool. So
the coolest thing about being alive right now, though, and I think that this is, I'm kind of an optimist in the sense of like, holy crap, do we live in a cool time, because the internet's a thing, right? And you can organically, if you do it right, and it's not easy, it's not freaking easy at all, but if you do it right, you can spread organically to the entire earth. Like if you figure out your own, and that's where I think a lot of indie filmmakers make a mistake. And I'm just like, this is my first feature, so I'm like, we're talking a lot about this. We're talking about it right now, where like we're not going to just leave the marketing up to the distributor once we sell it. It's like, no, then all of a sudden you're just leaving it into their hands. It's almost like just getting an agent and then never working on your acting. It's like so I think that part of our job as if we're filmmakers and if we're content creators and stuff, is to add that time. Maybe if you don't have the money for it, the time to just get the word out, whether it's just making reels or posts and sharing with people and like just sharing your trailer and or just coming up with some sort of clever organic marketing campaign, like some TikTok that people just picks up, or and a lot of it will fail, but figuring out like it is kind of cool because we do live in this time where like we can organically just spread the word, and if you do it right, like I there was this cool story about, did you see that girl and she posted about her dad's book on TikTok? Like she did like a 20-second TikTok about this book. He spent like 20 years just having it on the shelf. Nobody ever bought it. And she just said, hey, my dad wrote this book 20 years ago. And it's something about like, you should read it or something. And then all of a sudden it was like on the number, like it was on the top 10 list bestseller. Yeah. Just because of a little TikTok.
Yeah.
Like we got to think like marketers now too, which is annoying. But as it's annoying to do all these like 100 jobs, but it's like as actors, we got to think like marketers, as film, as content. Like it's just like we got to think like marketers and learn about marketing too. Maybe that's another job I do in another life. Marketing.
Mm-hmm. Already doing it.
Pardon?
Yeah, already doing it. Already doing it.
I guess so.
When you're an actor, you do it all.
You're so right.
We're video editors. We're lighting designers. We're voice artists. We are marketing. Publicity. Whatever you want.
It's so true.
One of the films that got, and that could be as an example of the whole marketing, was Terrifier 2, and you know that film, James.
What was it?
Terrifier 2.
Oh yeah. We geeked out about this last time. It's a crazy good horror film.
Yeah, that
not for the faint of heart though. It's extreme.
Yeah, it's super extreme. And what got my attention was the whole revenue that film have later on, because someone decided that it was a cool idea to show like a sneak peek on that specific scene. Then everyone was like, "Where can I watch it? Where can I watch it? Where can I watch it?" And it was genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that movie did so well, like considering like compared to the budget, it's mind blowing how well it did.
We played it at Vancouver Horror Show this past year, and I'll tell you, it was the fastest thing to sell out. It was like we didn't even have to market it at all. It was just like the tickets were gone.
It was one of the most fun I've had in a screening in a crowd probably in years, because I like seeing those kind of wild ones where you kind of experience something together, even though like it's really violent and just insane, but it's so over the top. So I just sat in the middle of this crowd, and it's just one of those movies. It's just like everyone's yelling at the screen. Oh my God. Like, we're just all like, we're just going through something, and it was just fun. And we're laughing and like, oh, this is crazy, because it's just so over the top. But
you're trauma bonding.
You're basically, that's kind of what it is in a sense, but there's something therapeutic about it. I don't know what.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I interviewed the actress who was in that scene, and she told me that she could never expect how people will react to it. That it was amazing. Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow. And those stories exist, so that's just cool to know. It's obviously few and far between, but like, Blair Witch Project, what they made that for like 20,000, and then the marketing budget, like that's the myth. Like they put, I think 100,000, 200,000 into marketing after that, but they made it for really cheap. Terrifier 2, they made it for really cheap, and then it made like 30 million, like it like 30 times its budget, like just from word of mouth and yeah. But I don't know. It's cool that we live in that time where something can catch fire, and you're just like, wow, it can take on a whole new life.
Yeah.
Totally.
Now, my last question here is, if you guys could describe this episode, we just did, on a film, how could we call it?
Trauma bonding.
Yeah. Trauma bonding. Perfect.
Yeah. I'm gonna put that on the title. Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the title of the video.
Actors trauma bonding.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
We could call it Triangle of Sadness and Trauma Bonding.
And Douglas Nyback.
I like that. I mean, at the end, what can I say, guys? I mean, I love what you do. It's incredible. I mean, it's amazing. And the fact that you keep doing it, you keep creating here. I mean, I know it's not easy, but you are doing it, and that is super badass. I mean, I know that, all of the actors that I've interviewed, you guys are super badass because you are showing everyone that it doesn't matter where you're from or what your language, you can get things done. And no matter how bad things might be, there's always a way to find an opportunity to keep pursuing your dreams, and that's incredible. That's amazing.
Thank you, Dan. You're amazing. It's incredible what
And
you do.
Dan, yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
giving a voice to working actors and to kind of pulling the veil back and showing that, it's not just Hollywood.
Yeah, and we're just getting
Yeah.
started because there's a lot of new things coming up on the channel. I also want to thank those who watch this. Thank you so much for staying here the whole video. It means a lot. Now this episode is about to be over, so you know the drill. On the description below, you're gonna see the social media of this amazing, talented people here. So go follow them. Hashtag Team Megan. Hashtag Team James. Hashtag Team Briar. Hashtag Team Rebecca. They're all amazing here. And again, guys, thank you so much. Keep inspiring. Keep creating. And I'll be definitely seeing the next one.